Hello, dear friends. We are sincerely happy to greet you again. Today we will have a conversation with the esteemed Igor Mikhailovich Danilov.
Greetings.
Igor Mikhailovich, during several meetings we've been discussing such a topic, such tools of the system as power and division in this world. And what is very helpful for our viewers is your words that if a person has power, this is basically spiritual suicide for him. That a person who is intoxicated or poisoned with this venom of power experiences the same feelings as the prince of this world: loneliness, anguish, emptiness, and futility. Thus, Jesus' deed becomes very deeply understandable when he refused that very temptation from the prince of this world, who promised him a reign over all worlds and the glory of these worlds. And you know, Igor Mikhailovich, what is also interesting is that when people consider such an issue as power and these very topics, consciousness hastens to say, it's not about you, it's about someone else. Power has nothing to do with you, you're an ordinary person.
Yes.
Well, this is about social and political issues, some kind of authority, some boss or politician, but definitely not you.
No, not even a boss or a politician. As soon as power begins to be discussed, immediately presidents,
Yes, exactly.
kings, and others like them come to mind, right?
Right. But you know, there is this very understanding that the devil is constantly, incessantly fighting a person, and his tools are both power and division in this world. So it turns out that by agreeing that this is not about us, we miss a whole lot in our spiritual development. You see, we were asked a question: why are so many videos and so much attention dedicated to this topic, the topic of power?
Friends of mine, I'll give you a straight answer. And I hope each of you will agree with me. As soon as it comes to power, we have to speak very carefully, as they say, to walk on eggshells. In what concerns this subject? Why? Because it is power. And what do we associate power with? Let's be honest. With the dark side of this world. Is power in our world actually associated with anything good? With light, with hopes for the future, with something beautiful, for example, with sunrise? It is, but only for a few individuals when they start winning elections. When their ratings are rising, and they see that they are definitely winning, it's the only moment when those who are completely mired on the dark side think that they see a sunrise. While in the rest of cases, when the word power is even just heard, what arises in people? A negative, inner state.
Some kind of apprehension.
Fear.
Yes.
Let's call things by their proper names. But why? Why does the word power scare all of us? Why does fear arise in us? And what is fear? Fear begets anger. Anger begets hatred, while hatred begets suffering. Because many of us, I would even say all, people in this world have already suffered from power. This is true. Many people have immediately thought, what power can you talk about in our case? After all, our friends are watching us across the world, and everyone immediately associates power with their authorities. Whoever they have, some have a president, others have a king, no matter who. Yet, I'll tell you, friends, that these are the games of our consciousness, because the first power we experience and our first step onto the dark side actually begins with manipulation, with the very first manipulation that we master. And this starts when we are just born. We don't understand much in this world yet, but we begin to express any of our discomfort precisely by what annoys our parents. Screaming, tears, fuss, and our mom and dad, grandma, nanny, or someone else comes running, depending on how lucky each of us was in our childhood. This means we don't like something, and the first thing we learn is that our tears and our screaming allow us to live more comfortably.
To fulfill our objectives.
Desires.
Yes, desires.
Isn't that so?
Exactly.
These are the first lessons of power. Later on, it gets worse. That is why, friends, exactly for this very reason, we dedicate so much time to this subject, the subject of power, because power is like darkness. It affects each of us as soon as we take a wrong step in this life. This is really so. And with every step we take towards darkness, we forget about the light, we forget who we are, and we forget what we are here for, because we get drawn into an illusion created in the darkness. And it seems to us that we see the light, we see bright colors, our life is seething and boiling, but in reality, we are merely in the darkest backyards of this universe. In other words, we are nowhere, and we are preparing to become a subpersonality. Is there any meaning in such a life? No. There is a meaning in a person's life only when he chooses the light, when he becomes a candle, a luminary in this darkness. That is when life emerges in a person. Well, before that moment, it's just a manifestation, I would say, of a miserable existence, of some creature, but not a human. A human is a human only when there is God's love in him, when there is a bright light in him. A human is dual. He has both, a source of light and a source of darkness and night in him. Only by our choice do we decide who we are, whether we are the light or we are the night, the all-consuming and all-absorbing night. You see how simple this is? Meanwhile, our manipulations and acquaintance with this darkness begin from our very birth. And later on, it gets worse. We start manipulating our parents. And then, our parents start manipulating us. Thus, we become convinced in the understanding that the one who has power is right. Isn't this true? We see it everywhere around us. A sandbox is the world where we meet others who are the same as us. And note, some children play with their own toys, while others take away their toys. This is a very important factor. Why? Because looking at the sandbox, where a group of kids is playing, we can already tell who will become who among them. This is really so. Some either become servants of authorities or acquire some kind of power, while others become those who hate them and suffer under their rule. Why? Because they are afraid of them. You see how the world is arranged? That is why we devote so much time to this topic. But if we unpack all this starting from our childhood, then this pattern, the pattern of force manifesting from power, is really ingrained in us. A simple example. Recall yourselves when you were little. If you had an average two-parent family, when you wanted something, mom would come in and say, okay, you can have it. Right after that, your dad would come in and say no, and take the toy or gadget from you, it doesn't matter. Maybe you were watching a cartoon and he turned off the TV set because it was time for you to go to bed. You told him, Mom, let me watch it. But your dad said, I'm telling you to turn it off and go to bed. And what did you realize? What awakened in you, first of all? Fear. And ultimately suffering from the fact that your father deprived you of the chance to enjoy life. Isn't that so? And what did you understand? That the one who is stronger is right. That the one who has power is stronger. Or vice versa, the one who is stronger has power. This is what we learn. Or the other way around, your dad allowed you to watch a cartoon or to play a game, and then your mom came in and said that it would be the way she said. And you realized that power is a force. That force which makes others suffer. At this point, a question arises. Why do we, adults, who have lived through our childhoods and have experienced a lot, act this way? Why is it so that even with our children, when one parent allows something to a child, the other parent, in order to dominate not the child, but their other half, does exactly the opposite? Why does a parent sacrifice, I would say, the child's happiness? After all, when a child watches a cartoon, he is distracted, he is happy, and it is interesting for him. But his parent deprives him of this opportunity just in order to dominate and to demonstrate his own power over his other half. Why do we do such things? And there's
So
already
it turns out a child is kind of an electorate in the family.
absolutely right.
Yes.
While the child in this case is just an electorate. But don't we fight for the child's attention, for him to be on our side when we decide who is the most important person in the family? We do.
Yes, exactly.
While later we wonder why our children become like this, and why, when they grow up, they do not call us, they do not want to communicate with us, and deep down, they are unconsciously afraid of us. Because every human being, even if he is some kind of an authority somewhere, is still afraid of a higher authority and always strives to become much more superior. That's why there is a struggle among us ordinary people, a struggle for the next rungs on the ladder leading to power, to the pinnacle of power. Do we strive for it just to assert ourselves? Or, I don't know, to make someone envious? No, we do it in order to reduce our inner fear, because we are afraid of power, in fact. And since we are afraid of it, we suffer. And this is reflected basically everywhere. Let's consider simple elementary things. For example, we come to a car repair shop. We arrive by car, something is clattering in it, okay? What does a repairman want? A simple question. Who hasn't experienced a situation when we enter and say, hey you, take a look, I have something clattering in my car. We've arrived, we are kings. And this is what we declare to the staff who are serving us. What reaction will we face in return? I mean, we've arrived, we have shown power and authority, because we pay money. We will leave being fools. I'm saying it right away. Why? Because we will either get an inferior spare part or a bad repair, or we will also pay for our stupidity, for addressing the repairman in such a way. Yet, what does a repairman want? Let's be honest, put yourselves in the repairman's shoes. If we are a repairman, we want people who come to us to walk in and say, "Oh Lord of all cars, you're the King of kings and of all spare parts. Please take a look at my car and be so kind as to find out what is squeaking in it." Right?
Right.
Isn't that what happens in reality? Whereas we come in and say, "Hey you, go and take a look." Well, we want to be treated one way, while we treat people differently. And that's, unfortunately, what this whole consumerist world is built upon. We are in conflict all the time. We are in conflict everywhere. We try to dominate everywhere, either by cunning or by force. If we have no force, we use cunning. If we cannot overcome someone by force or cunning, we use stupidity. But we still fight. We are in constant struggle and confrontation, and this is fractally repeated at all levels of our lives. Isn't it so? Let's simply consider this at the level of countries. Isn't this what happens? So as not to offend anyone, let's consider it in a purely allegorical way. There is a farmer who runs a farm. He is the owner. He has sheep. And why sheep? Because when someone gets to the pinnacle of power, he no longer treats you and us as human beings. Isn't that true? And let's listen to what they say, because in their conversations we can often hear that people are animals, biomass, and the like. And this is actually not a joke. It appears all over social media. After all, people now hear and share with others what we are called by those who consider themselves to be authorities over us. And here's a paradox. What is written in constitutions? That the supreme power belongs to people. Isn't it so? But do we exercise our constitutional rights? Yes, in some countries they are exercised a little bit. But what is going on in general? It is easy for us to judge. Why? Because, let's just say, tens of millions of people from all over the world are involved in our international public project Creative Society, and we see how constitutional rights are treated and how authorities behave in these countries. And it's different everywhere. But those in power always strive to dominate. Many people will say that's natural, they are the power. And now we return to our farmer. We are people, ordinary sheep. But this farmer has an intention so that we, having constitutional rights, such as to walk on all the meadows wherever we want, excuse me, to sing the songs we want, to dance as we want, so that we would walk exactly along the paths that the farmer has decided we can take and do not enter any other meadows that the farmer has forbidden us. So he gets a whole pack of dogs, such well-trained dogs, calling them sheepdogs, for example, and their job is to herd us, literally, to guard us, not to protect us from wolves, but to guard us against behaving the way we want to, the way the Constitution entitles us. Isn't it so? It is. However, these sheepdogs, these trained dogs, are few. The farmer realizes that there will be some disgruntled sheep who will rub his nose in their rights and wide meadows and will shout that they want to dance and sing freely. Well, for such sheep, he breeds wolves that quietly slaughter them. And these wolves and these dogs guard sheep from themselves, so that they, God forbid, don't stumble, right? Or they simply strengthen the power of one individual. So here's a question. Why is he like that? And what does he hope for? Let's look at the other side of this power. There are many such situations, and in many countries, I will say it again. But why does the farmer do this? Because there is fear in him. Because he is unsure that he'll be a farmer for a long time while he wants to sit there until the end of time and pass this power to his children, right? Well, not power, but the farm. After all, it is his. And he's the only one who knows how to run this farm. Without him, everything will fall apart. It will all collapse. Isn't that so? Who cares about the Constitution in this case? He knows better, he writes the rules. In fact, a lot of people encounter this when, excuse me, a farmer writes the rules of conduct for the sheep that completely violate all constitutional rights of those sheep. And then at night, these trained sheepdogs break into a house, or whatever it is called, a barn, of ordinary sheep, take away their belongings, and make up various accusations against them. Don't such situations happen just because the farmer, pardon me, has too many fears? Yet, does he make things better or worse for himself? After all, those sheep that have suffered are in fear, and other sheep, looking at them, are also in fear. Yes, they start walking as sheepdogs demand them to walk, because sheepdogs, these trained dogs, represent the master. Yes, they start walking, but what do they think about? And what do they wait for? That's the question. Each sheep hates the farmer and just waits for a moment when it will be able to butt him at least a little bit. And this is indeed true. So at one fine moment, there comes what comes. The sheep simply start raging. And we see that. Isn't that true? Simple examples, what we have witnessed just recently, how people were burning cars, disobeying, robbing and looting. This is such a display of disobedience by the sheep. They expressed their indignation towards the one who was listening to the concert at that time, towards the farmer, I mean. And this infuriated the sheep who were watching this even more. While their property was being destroyed by other sheep, at the time when the farmer was enjoying the concert, tell me, will people love him? Or in this case, the sheep? No, they won't. And they will wait for any opportunity to come out all together. These are elementary, simple things. But there are even worse cases. Sometimes, when people really run out of patience. They keep being suppressed by legislation and subordinate laws. There are restrictions and prohibitions on gatherings of more than 3 or 5 people. The more fears this farmer has for his own power, the more restrictions he imposes, and the more this spring is compressed. And it's enough for someone to give these sheep at least a little push, and revolutions, Maidans, and everything else emerge, which eventually destroy the farms and destroy the destinies of the sheep themselves. You see how simple everything is, in fact. Therefore, power is a terrible thing, whereas tyranny is absolutely hideous. Yet, how does an ordinary person become a tyrant? A simple question. And who is to blame? In this case, it doesn't matter who he is, what he looks like, whether or not he has a mustache or hair on his head. Nothing really matters. What matters is his parents, the experience he absorbed in a sandbox, when he saw what power is, when he first turned to the dark side. And it is his choice that shapes other people's future. If a person is on the light side, will he deprive other people of their constitutional rights? No. Will he sleep with fear then, expecting someone to take away his power? No. Because he will be sure that he is an honest and decent man, and he won't have to face the so-called Potemkin villages, right? Well, for those who don't know, we will explain a little bit. A long time ago, when the Tsarina was traveling, Duke Potemkin would arrange a show for her, a theatrical performance of a sort. They drew pictures of supposedly beautiful houses on canvases and staged it like in a theater. What she saw was beautiful settlements and nice people who were happy with her. Whereas in reality, behind those decorations, there was a ruined, barely surviving city, and the locals were kept far away under supervision, while those who talked to the Tsarina were actually actors, controlled by Secret Service officers. Specially hired people came out and thanked her for their wonderful life so as not to upset the Tsarina. Nothing has changed. People change, authorities change, while those who arranged these Potemkin villages still reign supreme up to this day. Can an ordinary person pursue the truth under such conditions? Oftentimes we see simple, real-life examples. When these trained sheepdogs pick on people for nothing, they're supposed to protect them. Yet they attack ordinary people. Why? Because their superiors told them that it is necessary to carry out some kind of activities. It is necessary to carry out mop-up operations, so that, God forbid, people wouldn't rise up against the authorities, right? There are many such cases, in fact. They pick on innocent people because they, I don't know, belong to some club or think differently. They start charging them with various offenses, for instance, with an attempt on the life of their farmer or something else, something you can't wrap your head around, such as threatening the integrity of the country. What country? And what integrity? What can an ordinary person do if he heard someone somewhere or talked about some good thing? However, this good thing suddenly scares these dogs. And there happens what? They break into honest people's houses at night and take away their stuff. Yes, I mean those militia or police officers. Excuse me, in our time, they were called militia, now they are called police. We had the KGB, now there is
Mossad.
Yes, Mossad, FBI, right. It's unimportant what they are called, it's important what they do. So these officers break in. Imagine, it is nighttime. You are an honest person, protected by the Constitution, but the law enforcement agents break into your house like bandits. Is that acceptable in a normal country? Well, many people will say, you should complain, and everything will be fine. This whole problem is because we are silent and don't know the laws. Now, let me explain to you, friends, that in many countries, there is no one to complain to. And this is really true. Who will you complain to? Lawyers will say, you should file a complaint with the public prosecutor. It's all good, right, and beautiful. Legally, yes, it is justified. But what happens in real life? Meanwhile, in real life, everything works simply. Let's take a district, a city, a region. It doesn't matter. Let's take a region. So the head of this militia or police, the head of this Mossad or KGB, the prosecutor, the judge, and the representative of the authorities, the regional director. They all hang out in the same bathhouse, with the same chicks, with beer or vodka, whatever. They all relax together and solve their issues. Is this news to anyone? No, it's not. Then the people insist that there should be additional agencies to control them. And instead of 5 representatives of the authorities, there are 6, 7, or 8 people sitting in the bathhouse. But what changes? Does it make the sheep feel better? No, it doesn't. So who should they complain to? Well, some people will say, one should complain to the top. Okay. To whom? To the head of Mossad or to the head of KGB? So here comes this ordinary man, who was unlawfully accused of everything possible. They ascribe to him a betrayal of his country, terrorism, division, what else, collaborationism, separatism, an attempted murder of their ruler, well, just anything that came to their drunken minds. So this poor, miserable man comes, for example, to the head of KGB. Would he be able to meet him? Who is he? He's an ordinary man, whom even the constitution doesn't protect in his country. What would he say? First of all, would he be able to get to that chief? Of course not. Some clerk, officer on duty, or someone else would come out and say, tell me about your case and I will forward it, right? And when he starts listening, he says, are you against the authorities? Have you come here to speak against the authorities? You've said enough to be convicted on 2 criminal counts. You'll be imprisoned for life. Are you crazy? This is an encroachment on power, while an encroachment on power means attempted murder of the head of state. Thus the frightened man runs away. Where is he supposed to go next? To the head of state? And what does an ordinary person think at the time when something like this is happening? The first thing he thinks is that the fish rots from the head. And if such lawlessness takes place in their city, their region or district, hence those wolves and those sheepdogs gnaw the sheep as they want, exactly with the permission of the farmer. It means the farmer wants it that way. And there begins what? Tension among people, which scares the farmer even more, doesn't it? After all, people start rising. And no matter how many guards he has, even if a half of the country protects him, his peace and his power, with their teeth and claws, he understands perfectly well that the entire power belongs to the people, and the time will come when the people will hold him and his near and dear ones accountable. That's exactly what happens in life. This is really so. That's why he doesn't sleep at night, that's why he worries, and that's why he starts inventing more and more new laws that contradict the constitution. What now? Can the people fight this somehow? And is there at least one institution that is actually able to protect such people at the international level? Where are they supposed to go? But this is real life. That's what is happening in many countries nowadays. And this is even a mild scenario, isn't it?
It is.
It is. And here's a simple question. What should people do? Some will say, if all the opportunities in your country are exhausted, you can go to the international level because there are human rights organizations and international courts. They do exist. But firstly, for starters, you should go through all, let's say, the authorities that supposedly protect people in your country, while everyone there sits in the same bathhouse. What will be their decision? If a person tries to prove he is right, that's where the entire darkness of power pounces on him. And all those dark forces simply ruin a person's life, let's put it this way. Yet I have a simple question. If you possess power and you make people suffer, which side are you on? And what will be the consequences for you? Doesn't a person know about that? He knows. And that is why he's afraid. Therefore, every year he is in power, he becomes more and more of a tyrant. This is really so. Such is life. And it is bad that there is no electoral platform, for example. After all, look, today we have all the opportunities to really build a democracy. In fact, those very farmers who claim that they defend democracy, that they defend people, that they stand up for their country fully and entirely, why don't they make an electoral platform where anyone could describe, for instance, that such and such citizens are acting against him illegally? They violate his constitutional rights, along with a whole list of law provisions. They attack him for no reason and accuse him of something he's innocent of. And so that necessarily all leaders of, let's say, that very KGB, the prosecutor's office, and the president himself could see it all, and at the same time so that people could see it all over the world. As a matter of fact, public opinion is what a tyrant is afraid of. In any country, no matter how much power tyrants have, they are afraid of criticism the most. This is indeed true. If tyrants were not afraid of criticism, they wouldn't shut people's mouths. Isn't that so? They wouldn't shut the mouths of free journalists. They wouldn't buy their honest tongues, so to say. They wouldn't close freedom-loving channels and wouldn't suppress bloggers. They would live honestly and disregard criticism like some of them do. After all, there are leaders in the world who are criticized, but they do not care at all, because they know what they are doing and they are doing it for people. Aren't there such leaders? Yes, there are. They are honest and have nothing to fear, because they have light and truth behind them. But there are few such people. While in most cases, having stepped onto the dark side already in childhood, a person turns into a tyrant, and it doesn't matter if this is a tyrant in his home towards his children, or he's a farmer of an entire farm, right? Everything is simple in fact. Indeed, it turns out that if a tyrant emerges in a home, everyone suffers. If a tyrant emerges in an organization, for example, a tyrant boss, this also turns into hell instead of a job, because he terrorizes everyone and everyone is supposed to, let's say, cringe before him and tell him fairy tales so that it would be sweet for him to listen, because he's a tyrant. The same takes place at a farm, excuse me. If a person has become a farmer, he wants all the animals at his farm because he no longer considers them humans, to sing him praises as well. Isn't this true? Let's just consider simple situations that arise in real life, okay? If we consider, again, ordinary dogs who are endowed, I wouldn't say with power, they are endowed with impunity, but they are covered by the law. And what do these trained dogs also manipulate in order to intimidate people? A fear of loss, a loss of something. A fear of losing something drives people to the dark side. And that's where good people stop being good. They take the dark side and already start talking and lying even against their friends. But in order not to lose the light, you should let go of everything you have. After all, having nothing and holding on to nothing, you will never betray the light and will never exchange it for darkness. What do they do to people? If someone catches their eye, they just tear them apart, like an armband for training dogs. It turns out that a person lives like a training dummy, in fact, all beaten up, tortured, and in fear. And people around him, looking at him, also start being afraid. And tension arises. This tension eventually bursts a dam. Similar things happen in countries when people are overstressed from fear. When they are frightened by those dogs, after all, it is not the leader of the country who goes around and torments people. It is not the leader of the country who breaks into people's houses at night and intimidates them with various charges and everything else. It is not he who terrorizes people, but it is his trained dogs. They are really dogs because you cannot call them humans. And what happens? A slight push is enough. Someone will definitely take advantage of it. Every power structure always has someone who craves power. This should be remembered. On the dark side, everyone is fighting for power. So a slight push is enough for a country to just collapse. Yet what happens to a pond which is located, for example, between two settlements, and a dam breaks through? The water runs out. Then it exposes the bottom, this mud where there are a lot of big fish. And everyone, I'm saying it again, literally everyone, even those conservationists, run down and collect these fish. Do they dip these fish into that stream which is left of that water body? No. They take the fish for themselves. In the same way, just like vultures, other countries attack a collapsed country from all sides. Everyone involved in business, especially in big business, everyone tries to grab a piece of that country. And what does that country turn into? Well, we know firsthand what it turns into. Many people have also seen that. This is how it happens. And the question is, whose fault is it? Let's approach this from afar. Let's take a simple example. We now have an international project involving, let's put it mildly, tens of millions of people. These are our friends. We are friends. We have friends all over the world because we want constitutions to work. We want to breathe freely. We want to be able to walk in any meadows and for those meadows to be ours. We want the creative society. Now let us take a purely hypothetical example. One of our friends is attacked by those dogs out of drunkenness or foolishness. What would happen? Will we remain silent? No. These are friends of ours, whose constitutional rights have been violated in one of the countries. What will we start doing? In any case, as many people will say, what can you do? At least something simple. We will express our dissatisfaction with this act through all means available to us. For example, through that very social media. People will say, so what? Is it a big deal? Well, this is criticism. This is valid criticism from a lot more people than the population of almost any country, except maybe China and India. But in China and India, a lot of people want to live in the creative society. I'm just slightly touching upon this. So imagine, what will happen? The first person who doesn't tolerate criticism, and there is far more criticism coming at him than he has people in the country. How will he act? Will he sleep peacefully? No. A lot of people, those who were still deluded and thought that their leader was on the light side, will realize all this truth. They will realize that their country has long been in the realm of darkness. What will they want? Freedom and light. It's a natural process, isn't it? We've taken just a simple example. And how will this end? A simple question. The truth will rise like the sun anyway, and no one will be able to resist it. Why? Because power really belongs to people. That's the truth. And people all over the world now begin to understand this. They begin to understand that the world is not the dark side. The world is the sunrise. It is a lot of light. You know, some people say that outer space is dark. This is said only by those people who haven't actually seen outer space. There are many bright stars in our outer space, and outer space is actually bright and light. There are very few places where you can find dark areas where darkness reigns. But in our life, on our beautiful planet, we unfortunately have so many places where the dark side predominates. That's why such things happen. That's why there is so much dirt, so much injustice, and so many trampled and tortured destinies. And it is only because someone is too afraid. It is only the fears of top officials that evoke the madness of drunken dogs. Because, I'll repeat it once again, it's not the top officials who attack people. No, it is the same people who attack, who are slightly endowed with power. And they can be that very trigger which ultimately destroys the country. Isn't that so? Everything that is happening nowadays on the dark side of our world is actually the consequence of the fact that somebody's dad or mom once made a wrong choice. You see how simple everything is and how interconnected everything is. And in order for us to understand and not to judge someone, saying that this is someone's fault or the top official is to blame, no, it's not always like that. The main reason why, for example, darkness predominates in some countries, and precisely the dark side has power all over the world, is because people are to blame. Those people who haven't understood that light and darkness are created by us, precisely by us people. That's why all this is happening. And the reason is very simple. That's exactly why we have dedicated so much time to the concept of power, that power is not only what we give to our leaders, who afterwards, because of their fears, establish whole organizations, services, and the like, who invent how to restrict our rights, how to rob us, and do other negative things that we see in our lives, right? It's not only that, it is us in the first place, and everything starts with us. None of us parents know what our child will eventually become. If we allowed the power, if we allowed our child on whom we pinned our hopes to join the dark side, from his first steps, what will happen? I will answer simply, there will be other people suffering, while that world or that country or that farm where people suffer is unstable and it's not forever. This is true. So why do we need such a world where people suffer, where their destinies can be destroyed because of some alcoholics, just because their leadership is relaxing in a bathhouse or a casino together? It doesn't matter where. Yet, this fact is typical of almost all countries. And in all countries, the main oppressed category deprived of their rights are those who, according to the Constitution, are the highest authority. That's the whole answer. And the answer is that in reality, all power in any country belongs to people. However, people who are filled with fear stand on the dark side. If a person is overfilled with fear, it means that he doesn't see the light. He doesn't see hope. It means that he is already oppressed and he is already suffering. And since he is suffering, hence the cause is inside him. Everything is very simple. In order for the world to change, it is necessary for the majority of people in this world to choose the right side. Everyone has the right to choose. The world is divided into light and darkness, and we have the right to decide which side to be on. And we are obliged to help other people choose the light. We are obliged to protect our friends, to make this world brighter and more beautiful. Then, God grant, there will be peace in the world. A beautiful world, where darkness will be in its proper place. In fact, everything is very simple in this world. The higher a person climbs up the social ladder, which is like a mountain, the higher he becomes above others. And when a person climbs to the most responsible post, becomes the top leader, who alone can make decisions for everyone and influence the opinions of other people, it means he stands on the top of the mountain. He is alone, and there's no one near him. Everyone is below, and all responsibility falls onto him, and he stands alone before both God and the devil. It doesn't matter if you are a parent or a farmer. You are the only one making a decision, but you have to remember that you are also making it for those who stand behind your shoulder. Well, this means responsibility. If down, below the mountain, people suffer from a person's decisions, then all the responsibility falls onto him, and he will have to answer anyway. If not in this life, then afterwards. This life is fleeting, and everything passes in an instant, no matter how much people cling to life, and no matter how long a person lives, be it 1500 years or a million years. Even a million years will pass in an instant, but it will take much longer to answer. Everything is fair in this world, and the truth is like the sun. It will rise, no matter how much those on the dark side want it to be otherwise. Many people switch to the dark side precisely because of fear. Remember one thing. You have a choice. You choose which side to be on.
Igor Mikhailovich, is the dark side stronger?
No. No, no, and again no. The dark side is faster, simpler, and more attractive. That's why a lot of people go there. It's very simple. It's enough to stumble, and you are already on the dark side. But in order to get to the light side, you have to get up off your knees. And that's the difference. When you don't make an effort, you fall down. You fall into darkness. But when you climb up, you rise to the sun, and it's already you who become the light. Many people say, and it's understandable, such is the world, there is a lot of injustice in it. Power predominates, while power is often on the dark side because the dark side is allegedly the power. No, it isn't so. The world can be changed, and it is indeed possible to build the creative society, and some people say, let's give it a try. Don't try. Either do it or don't. Then everything will work out. There's no place for any attempts. If you act, you will win. If you try, you will lose. The world is simple, and it is divided into brave people and cowards. Cowards are those who choose darkness and follow the dark side. Never forget that, my friend. No matter how hard it is for you, in this half-dark world, it is half-dark only because you haven't decided whether you are on the side of light or on the side of darkness. And a lot depends on you, my friend. After all, honest people use their force for knowledge and protection, not for attack. Only those who are on the dark side attack the innocent. Darkness is powerful, but it is powerful only until a small candle appears, which simply destroys this darkness, no matter how thick it is. To be a human means to look the truth in the eye and choose whether to emanate light or darkness. Be the candle or be the night. It is your choice, because you are a human being, and you, my friend, have the right to choose. But the future of others also depends on you. Remember this. So, friends, the most important thing is not to give up, while the truth is the force. Therefore, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, friends. Peace be with you, and God's love. God's love is the greatest force that exists in the world. So, my friend, may the force be with you